Hello and welcome to another episode of SuperSoul Boulder. Pull up my notes over here. Welcome, SuperSoul Boulder, every Monday night, and we're starting a little earlier tonight because it's so darn dark outside, and all these holiday schedules going on, right? Everyone's schedule's a little different, at least for me in the clinic these days, these last couple weeks. So welcome to SuperSoul Boulder, conversations in mind, body, health, and wellness, where we not only want to look at, hi Marty, we not only want to look at the body, your physical body, but integrate that into your mind, your emotions, your heart, all the things that make us up as a human, right? Not just a human, a person. So I'm Dr. Laura Johnson from Yellowbrick Physical Therapy here in beautiful Boulder, Colorado. And tonight we are talking about releasing, letting go, saying goodbye to those familiar yet often outdated parts of yourself. This can be hard or scary, but it can leave room, it can open up room for new things to come in, for new patterns to come in, for new abilities to move to come in. If we're stuck in our old ways, if you're stuck in your old patterns of your body, we don't have the ability to free up to move the way that's possible, the way that's free, the way that's more light and allows you to do all sorts of things. That goes emotionally too, right? The more we hold on to old patterns, old ways of yourself, old things in your home, letting go has a very powerful quality to it. Imagine if we didn't, well, we'd accumulate a lot. If we didn't let go of things in our homes, we'd accumulate a lot of stuff, which some people do. And what it does is it traps you in and makes it kind of stuffy, right? Too stuffy. The same thing can happen in our bodies where we accumulate patterns over long periods of time, which can turn into tension. And tension can then turn into restrictions in your movement and hold you back from moving and being the way you could possibly be, being free to move, being free to be and live up to your more full and more true potential. So releasing and letting go is, this came forth into my theme in my yoga class yesterday. I'm on a yoga studio. If you're local, that's at noon on Sundays. And I just got to thinking about the end of the year and the end of a decade this round, and how releasing and letting go, hey Greg, is not just for ends of years, although it's a very helpful time of year for this, because just like nature is like leaves fell and died, and nature is, things are calming down, things are more still, or nature is. Most of us are running around frantic still, or what our culture is, but the nature and order of things is more in this way of stillness and darkness and things dying and releasing. So we can take that to our own lives too. In what way, as this time of year is rolling around, before we embark upon a new year and new things we want to do, it may help to create space and room by releasing old things. And this doesn't mean purging things in your home. It doesn't have to mean purging things in your home. It doesn't have to mean having a fire burning ceremony, although it can. But it could be as simple as seeing and reflecting upon the last year, the last decade, or simply where you are right now in this moment and what comes to mind. What comes to mind as you think back upon the last year or the last 10 years, perhaps. What does come to mind? What comes forth in images, in the things that happen, accomplishments or difficulties? Just let it all kind of come up, and becoming simply aware of those items, they can have a very subtle importance. So bringing them to mind, bringing them to light, and maybe even asking a question as simple as, what is this here to tell me? Or, releasing some tough feeling about it, or letting that be here. I think a big part of letting go of releasing is letting it be known, letting it be seen. Hey, Alex. Letting even the difficult parts, so the accomplishments, the difficulties, the challenges, whatever comes to mind if you're reflecting on the year or the decade. And again, this could be at this time. It's kind of a nice time to do that, but you can do that all the time. Hey, Frederick. But allowing those to surface and be known is really, perhaps, maybe, find out for yourself all that's necessary to free yourself from it, to free yourself from a thought of that having something to do with who you are and what you're about, right? So underneath all this is perhaps the notion that you are not those things that have made up who you've taken yourself to be all that time, or you are not your accomplishments, you are not your difficulties or challenges, and you are not even the restrictions in your own body, right? So the other part of this that I get to see daily clinically as a physical therapist is the restrictions in someone's body that can hold them back from doing and being who they can potentially be and what they can potentially do. And it's not about going forth and kind of forcing or just doing anyway, right? Like there's a better, subtler way that can make for a more integrated, it can make for a more integrated approach. It can make for a better, long-lasting way of shifting yourself. If you've ever been through a process, or maybe you had an injury and maybe it took a long time to heal, or there was a way of like, trying to think of a good example, do exercises, but maybe the exercises didn't quite get it, but it kind of got it good enough. But there's a better, subtler way to have foundational baseline health, which then once you add movements and exercises on top of that, you're so much more able and more powerful and more strong. So it's a matter of the order of events. First, release, let go, heal, then add and do and be free and move. First, let's release these tensions and patterns, and then you already have intrinsic strength and power that was just kind of already there once you unlocked yourself from the restrictions that were holding you back. Same thing emotionally, right? Or in your mind, once you kind of look at the things that are holding you back, the things that are keeping you stuck, which we may not be aware of. The first part is awareness. Same with the body. The first part is the awareness that something is going on there and needing to look at that head on. I didn't want to do this for the longest time. It's probably why I'm in the profession I'm in and why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. As a competitive runner and athlete, I wanted to keep going, and that was so important to me that I could easily override the subtler signs and keep going and keep doing what I knew to do, which was keep running, keep lifting, keep cross training, keep at it because of this fear that I wouldn't be able to get it back if I lost it. But what I see now, having gone through a process of stopping, slowing down, recovering, it may very well be the only way to truly get it back if it's meant to be. If I'm meant to be doing that, and perhaps in a better, much stronger, much more efficient way. So if we take care of the restrictions first, the tightnesses, the tensions, the patterns, if we unlock the patterns, it can be scary. It can mean you have to do things in a way you haven't done before, maybe in an easier, subtler way. For me, it was like, wait, no, I want to do all these exercises, but what I learned is what I need is to let my body heal, let these patterns unlock and release, and in doing that, I will be stronger, more efficient, more powerful, and in deeper, subtler, longer lasting ways than I ever knew was possible. And that itself, that has more strength and power to it on its own, right? Now, I am not tied to who I take myself to be as a runner or as an athlete. I am free freer, at least it's a work in progress, but freer from needing to keep that going, freer in order to decide what I want to do and when, what my body needs and when, and not just because I believed this for the longest time, for the last 10 years even, I might actually say that as I'm talking about my own example, the last 10 years believing I needed to keep doing this thing this way, when there's actually a whole other possibility out there that can be more joyous, more powerful, more efficient, and more enlivening. But the key to getting there, and I've seen it over and over, I've experienced it myself, I've seen it over and over again with patients and even friends or people who've gone through processes like this, is the allowing yourself to let go of the old, outdated piece. That might mean looking at your own experience, or just diving into your current experience. It might mean looking at who you take yourself to be. Might simply mean getting the tension in your body released so that it can actually be in its proper posture and alignment, so that you can have more efficient range of motion of your hips or your shoulders, or your ability to bend down without pain. Quite often looking at the pain, going into the pain, not avoiding it, not distracting yourself away from it, not just doing everything you've always done before. And oftentimes this takes help. It did for me too. Help, assistance, looking at what's really going on and experiencing a change, a subtle shift, so that you know that you're heading in the right direction. And you've got to find this out for yourself. I did as well. And I love to go on tangents. I can feel it right now. So backing up a second, especially when you get excited, right? We've got to, well, I think I went on a tangent when I was talking about a patient example. So one person who was in today who's had back pain for a long time, young guy, he should essentially be having this kind of severe back problem that's gotten slightly better but hasn't totally resolved. But we've got to release the tension that's restricting the joints. The way I get to feel this on a regular basis, particularly with the psoas muscle, which I'm really familiar with. So it's a good example. It's this front stabilizer along the front side of your spine. It gets overlooked a lot. It's the only thing that crosses the hip joint, front or back side, and we can kind of overlay it on our skeleton here, but it's attached to the spine and attached to the leg on each side. It has a big impact on pulling our posture forward so that we're not as upright as possible, and then we get back pain as a counter force. But when that muscle is really tense, and we won't feel it just from bending backward or stretching, but when it's really has a lot of tension in it, it is creating a compression on the spine. And again, this is one example. There are lots of examples in the human body of this, lots of examples otherwise too, but this is going to create compression in the spine. It's going to have all sorts of other effects and impacts on the body. Not only does it compress the discs, for example, the discs in between the vertebrae, it's also going to create more tension in the hip joint. And if it creates more tension in the hip joint, it's going to create more pressure on the knees when you're moving and make you land on your feet differently when you're walking or when you're running or whatever you're doing. So there's this whole down the chain effect. If it's even creating less motion or more restriction in the hips and pelvis, you're not going to be able to have as great of a stride, as efficient, as powerful of a stride in the really subtlest of ways. And so releasing tensions and patterns, even in the subtlest of ways, which takes some practice, which takes some repatterning, which takes some retraining, but starts with releasing some tension, releasing some restrictions that we may not even have awareness that are there, then we can start to free up that whole chain. Walk, land on our heel, but land on your foot more fluidly, more in line with how your body's supposed to move, and not have those restrictions. But imagine trying to kind of effort your way into a better gait pattern, or a better like walking pattern or running pattern. Imagine trying to I know a lot of people have been instructed to do this. I've been there myself before too, where you're trying to mentally like make your foot land a certain way. But if you're trying to mentally make your foot land a certain way and it's all a restriction in your hips, back, and pelvis that's creating a change in how your foot is landing on the ground, then we're missing this and we're trying to make something else happen outside of that, and we're not going to solve this problem, right? So just efforting and trying to kind of think your way or cognitively make your foot land a different way is not going to solve this problem of releasing tension in the hips, back, and pelvis. But I see that happening all over the place, where that people are trying, where, you know, we're told, I've been there myself before. I'll just use me as an example again, where, okay, I'm trying to make sure I can tell I'm not landing right, so I'm going to try to think about it or post something or, you know, have some orthotic or something like that. But wait a second, what if the problem is up here? And all we do is release that restriction, and then everything becomes more fluid. I'm not saying that happens in one moment necessarily. It depends on how long that's been going on. It depends on what kind of activities you're doing on a regular basis. It depends on a whole lot of things. But one thing I'm very clear on is that if we skip over the releasing and try to do something new, then there's not as much space for it. So even as you head into a new year or a new day, for instance, if we don't kind of look at and see clearly what's keeping us held back, it'll be really hard to move into the next phase, the next year, the next season, the next day with more space for change, more space for growth, or for potential to be there. You know, you guys will have to let me know if you have any comments or questions, or jump in if you have thoughts on that. And the point there is, you know, can you live more freely if you let some things go or die? Sometimes it can feel like dying if you go for that. If you're thinking, if you go through this psychological, emotional place of, it can feel like something you're really familiar with. For me, that could look like the running, the athlete. Who am I if I'm not this? That can feel really hard, really painful, but it can be so powerful to stay with it. Same thing with your body. I don't want to feel this pain or this problem or this restriction. It's keeping me from being with my friends. It's keeping me from doing the things I want to do, climbing up mountains, going on runs. But wait a second. If you just kind of wait a second and take a look at that and become informed by your own body, if you get help in the way that'll be most beneficial for you, can start to open this up, and more quickly than you might think. And then you're not staying in the same patterns, that same restriction, mentally and physically and emotionally and spiritually even. So I invite you to, in whatever way this strikes you, whether it's in your body or in your mind, or even in, reflecting on the last year or this end of a decade, and giving yourself some space for stillness, giving yourself some time to just settle so that you can see what might want to be seen, see what might be there. And a question I kind of left earlier was perhaps ask yourself, if those memories arise or a sensation arises in your body, you can ask, what is there to see here? Or some question like that, and just find out if something comes. And there's so many places, ways in life, in your body, where you can ask simply and be and see what comes up. Maybe a insight or a thought in your mind, maybe something you'll have to stay with longer. Maybe it'll prompt you to be like, oh, maybe I need to get help in this particular way, with your body or with something else. So so much possibility there when we allow space and stillness and openness. And it's my strongly held and professional opinion that your body can heal more fully if you release the tight patterns first. So you don't want to strengthen something into a tight, restricted pattern, right? And weakness comes from neurological dysfunction, also, not just from muscle on its own. So it's one message I want to keep reiterating for you guys out there is, so it's easy to think of muscle on their, hanging out on their own. So there's a tight or weakness or something wrong. There's a tendency in our culture to go straight to strengthening. But if the problem isn't actually a muscle, just a muscle weakness problem on its own, which generally it's not. There's the nerves control muscles, and so if there's a neuromuscular disconnection, we're gonna have tensions, we're gonna have tightnesses, we're gonna have weaknesses. And speaking of the nervous system, which I love, which is so fascinating and amazing, if we can think about the nervous system as what controls muscles, we can also consider how the nervous system holds patterns too. We have in our nervous system, we hold memories or patterns, or in our body, in our psyche. Sometimes people will say in your soul. The nervous system will hold memories in a particular way. And so part of releasing, whether it's through looking at memories or looking at your current experience or tensions or patterns in your body, even just sensations in your body, is a really great place to start or to continue on in terms of getting really familiar with yourself, with your patterns, with things that might be holding you back and you might not be aware of it. So I invite you to give yourself some space for stillness as we head into the last day of this year tomorrow, and before getting excited or into the new year, what can we let go of, let die, let fall away? And how is that for you? And how much of that do you or can you or will you want to tolerate? And those are some good questions for you too. So thank you so much, those of you who are watching, or if you're watching on the replay, shoot me comments or messages if you want to weigh in on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Rather than just me talking and telling you mine. So it's always great to hear from you. Let me know what you're thinking. Shoot me some, I couldn't see some of these comments, Mike. So hope to see some of you next week into the new year, and let me know how it goes. I'd love to know. Thanks so much for watching SuperSoul Boulder. I'm Dr. Laura Johnson from Yellow Brick Physical Therapy. And if you have any questions at all, comments, or want to find out more information, shoot me a comment on here, send me a private message, check out my website at www.bouldercoloradophysicaltherapy.com. And I hope you have a wonderful last day of the year. Bye.